In this video, we're going to talk about understanding the product and the market, and how if you understand the product and the market, it really sets you up for faster and for easier sales. We're going to start off by talking about understanding the product and the market and what this allows you to do, how this helps you. We're then going to talk about small versus big companies, like if you work for a small or a big company, and how that impacts what sort of product information you have access to, what market info you have access to, and what you actually have to go out and find for yourself. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll finish off by talking about the value proposition, right? A great way to understand exactly how your product works and what value it provides to customers. A customer persona, so that you have a good visual or a good understanding of who your target customer is, what they think, what their top priorities are, things like that. And then also the customer ecosystem, how your target customer interacts with other important people in that ecosystem. So how does understanding the product and the market help? Well, I think the easiest way to think about this is if you really understand the product, if you really understand what problem your product is solving, and also understand your target customer and how they fit into their market, it's like going to a quiz when you have all of the answers, right? It's like fishing with dynamite. There's nothing that the customer can throw at you that can faze you, because you know exactly who that customer is. You know that your product will be helping them in some way. You know how your product's going to be helping them. So it doesn't matter if the customer is trying to steer the conversation in one direction. You have the power to control the conversation. You can take the conversation where you want to take it. You can make sure that you hit on certain pain points the customer might have. Right? If you know what problem your product is solving for that customer, you can make sure that you talk about that problem to begin with and really get that customer feeling the problem they have, so that they're more invested in actually looking for a solution. Importantly, if you understand the ecosystem, you also know who you need to talk to and why you need to talk to that person, and you also know who to avoid and who not to talk to as well, which is really, really powerful. So basically, understanding the product and the market helps you to explain the solution to the customer's problem to the correct person for a simpler sale. Now, what about a small company versus a big company? So if you work for a big company, you most likely have a product management division or department. You probably also have a marketing team or a strategic marketing team, and they are going to be telling you what the product does, why customers like the product. They're going to give you information about the market, who you should be contacting, right? So they give you that information so that you can go and do the sales. If you work for a smaller company, they might not have that resource. And if it's a really small company, it actually may be down to you as the salesperson to go and gather this information, to go and uncover where this product can be sold, uncover who the target customer is, what their ecosystem is, to understand exactly why customers like the product. That could be down to you. So depending on small or big companies, kind of how much support you're going to get in this area. But either way, whether it's a big company or a small company, it's still important for you as the salesperson to understand how you can capture this market intelligence, because you're the person who's actually out in the field. You're the person who's getting this feedback every single day. Regardless of whether you're working for a big or a small company and how much support you get, it's still important for you to be able to gather your own intelligence, because that will help you sell better. So, value proposition. Before we talk about value proposition, what's important to remember is that as a salesperson, you do not have to understand the technical side of the product. Okay, you think about someone who's selling pharmaceuticals, right? They don't understand exactly how the drugs work. They don't know all the different pathways that the drug interacts with, but they do know what value that drug provides. And that is the important part here. Again, going back to the essence of selling, you are solving a problem in exchange for money, right? So you don't have to understand exactly how technically the product works. You have to understand what value the product brings and what problem the product solves. Okay, and the easiest way to do this is to understand the value proposition. And value proposition is basically a simple statement that summarizes what value your product provides. Okay, so it needs to talk about how it solves problems, why it's better than other alternatives. It needs to be easy to communicate, but also needs to be easy to understand by the customer as well. And basically, the value proposition helps potential customers understand why they should choose your brand, your product, or your service rather than a competitor. Okay? Now, a value proposition can be as simple as it saves you time and money, but it's much, much better if the value proposition is actually an equation. Okay? I was always taught this. If you want a good value proposition, make sure it's an equation, some sort of mathematical equation, because that's a much easier sell. And I'll give you an example of that on the next slide. So, an example, a classic value proposition, which is used quite a lot. The product saves the customer time and money, right? So you go and talk to a customer, this product saves you time and money, great. It conveys what value your product gives, but it's not great, right? A better way would be as follows. Let's say that the product saves the customer's staff 1 hour each time they need to file a document, okay? Each staff member can file 4 documents per day in an 8-hour day. So basically it takes 2 hours for each of their employees to file 1 document. And let's say that every time they file a document, it brings $100 into the company. Okay, let's say that's the situation. And your product can reduce the amount of time by half. So actually, they can now file 8 documents per day per employee, okay? So current situation, each employee files 4 documents per day, bringing in $400 to the company. The solution, i.e. your product, with our product, they can do 8 documents a day, bringing in $800 to the company, okay? The product costs $100 per day to use. So you put that into an equation, $400 extra revenue minus the $100 for the cost brings in $300 extra of revenue each day per employee, okay? Now think about this, which one would you rather be selling, right? If you're talking to a customer, would you rather go in and say, this product is great because it saves you time and money? Or would you rather go in and say, this product is great, it saves you time and money. In fact, for every employee you have, if you implement our product, you could be bringing in an extra $300 of revenue every single day for every employee, right? That's $9,000 a month. That's over $100,000 a year per employee just by implementing our product, right? That's a much stronger sale. That really conveys the value much better. Okay, so that's what a value proposition is. And if you can, try and tailor it towards an equation because that's much easier to sell. It's a much better way of conveying that value. Okay, customer persona. Customer persona is a way of imagining your target customer as a person, okay, as an actual person with a name, with hobbies, with interests, right? So rather than just our customer owns businesses less than $100,000 revenue each year or something, you have our target customer is called John and they really like soccer or whatever, right? It's a way of taking the averages, right? So if you interview lots and lots of your target customers, you can find common attributes, right? And then you put all of those together and you make this average person. And this helps you visualize who your target customer is. And I normally do this using this quad chart. So in the top left, you put a photo of the person, right? Again, it's not an actual person, so you can just choose a general photo. Their name, what type of education they have, what are their typical titles, right? What are their hobbies? And then in the bottom left, you talk about what are their top priorities, how are they measured, what are some of the time and budget constraints they have. And then the bottom right, you talk about typical problems they face, like on a day-to-day basis, what really is a problem for them. And then psychographics. And psychographics are basically, how does this customer think, okay? So let me give you an example. It will make everything a bit simpler. So let's say that we've interviewed lots and lots of our target customers, and our target customer is a dentist. Okay, so we've interviewed lots of these dentists, and we've taken all of the common threads, the averages, and we've put them all together into one customer persona, Joe Bloggs. Okay, so we've got the picture in the top left, Joe Bloggs. Education-wise, Joe Bloggs is probably going to have a doctor of dental surgery, DDS, or a doctor of medicine in dentistry, DMD. Their typical titles are going to be dentist or dental office owner, right? Their hobbies are fishing and football. And then we get into the kind of the important stuff of the business side. Top priorities, right? What is the top priority of a dentist? To run a profitable business is a huge priority for them. They own the dental office generally, so they want to run a profitable business. As well as this, they want to provide quality services to their patients and to acquire new patients through goodwill they create in the market. Okay, so those are top priorities for Joe Bloggs, for a dentist, your target customer. How are they measured? They're measured on the perception from the public and their patients, and in terms of referrals and word of mouth. Time and budget constraints. Time is the biggest issue, as productivity throughput is the key to dental office profitability. Okay, then we go on to typical problems they face. Competition, right, from other dental offices, or maintaining their patients, stopping them from going to other dental offices. They have another problem that third-party payment companies set and dictate fees for services. And also insurance billing management requires time and dedicated staff for filing claims. Improper filing of claims results in a high number of claim denials and an overall loss for the dentist, right? Time is money. And then finally, some psychographics. How do they think, right? They believe that our product will, etc., etc., right? You've interviewed a few of these people, you get the same feedback each time. This product's great, it will really save us time, or whatever. That's what you put down there. This believes this product will save them time, right? How they think. And they also see price and speed as key in the decision process. Now that's a lot of information right there, but you can see how this could be useful, right? You know their top priorities instantly. So if you're talking to them as a salesperson and you start talking about how fast your product is, they're not going to care. But if you can spin that around and say this will make your business more profitable, suddenly that's a top priority for them. They're going to be very interested. So this, again, this gives you areas to focus on. You understand the customer really well with this. You already understand the product really well because of the value proposition. You're starting to tie everything together and really be able to control those conversations. I really hope this makes sense. If there are any questions about this, please just leave them in the comments below. So that's a customer persona. And then we have the customer ecosystem. So the customer ecosystem is basically your target customer and all of the other players in that particular space. Right, so for the example of the dentist, right, the ecosystem could be the dental office. Who are all the other people in the dental office? How do they interact with each other? What are they looking for? So a really simple way to do this to begin with is just to map out the ecosystem. So the example here, we'll continue with the dentist example. You have your patient, right? They come in and they interact with the receptionist. And they also interact with the dentists, the hygienists, the dental assistants, right? The dentists, hygienists, and assistants, they interact with each other. And then all of the staff, the receptionist, dentist, hygienist, dental assistant, they all interact with the dental office manager. And it's the dental office manager who also talks to the suppliers and they talk to the insurance companies, right? The patient doesn't talk to the dental office manager and the patient doesn't talk to the suppliers, right? You can see how all these different people interact with each other in a slightly different way. So this is step one. Understand who talks to who interacts with who, so you get a good understanding of how the ecosystem plays. Then what you do is you take each of these different people in the ecosystem and you separate them out. Okay, so you've got all these different roles here. And then for each of these, you write down a summary of what that role is, and you also highlight a valuable problem that each of these roles has. So if we take the example of the dentist, summary, professional healthcare practitioner whose main concerns are maintaining patients' healthy teeth by preventing disease and running a successful business, generally also the owner of the dental office. And a problem they might have, improper filing of claims results in a high number of claim denials and an overall loss for the dentist. Okay? So you do that for all of the different people in the ecosystem. And you need to remember that although your product may help most of the people in the ecosystem, there could be a few people in the ecosystem which actually your product does not help and even may actually be worse for that person. Okay, so it's really important to remember this as well, not just all the people you're helping, but all the people you may actually not be helping, because that may be a battle that you need to fight a little bit later on. Okay, so you've mapped out the ecosystem, who interacts with who, you've written down summaries of who they are, as well as what valuable problems they have. What problems do they have which you may be able to solve with your product? Then what's really important is to highlight who is the decision maker, who is the user, and who is the buyer. These are three really important people. Now it could be, just like in this example, that the decision maker and the buyer are actually the same person, and the user could be someone else. So that's what we've got in this example. So the dentist is the person who makes the decision. They choose whether they want to go with the product. They're the person who buys the product. But it could be that the dental office manager is actually the user of the product. Okay? It's really important to understand this because depending on who you're talking to, you can highlight different points. If you're talking to the dentist and you talk about how quick the product is, how much time it saves and things like that, dentist doesn't care. They want profitability, right? Whereas if you talk to the dental office manager and you start talking about the price and how much extra profit it's going to bring the office, they're also not going to care. They're more interested in how much time it's going to save them. Okay? So by understanding the ecosystem, who interacts with who, and understanding who's the decision maker, who's the user, who's the buyer, you can make sure that when you're talking to each of these different people, you're highlighting different points, okay? And you're winning over each of these different people in the ecosystem. So I hope that makes sense. So if we go back to the original slide, right? Why does understanding the product and understanding the market actually help? Because if you understand the product and the market, you understand what problem you're solving, and you understand the people in that market, their current situation, and why they have that problem in the first place, you have massive amounts of control. You can make sure you control the conversation in the right direction. You can make sure that you hit on pain points. You understand exactly who you're supposed to be talking to, why you're talking to them. Is this the decision maker? Is this the buyer? What do I need to say to them? And you also know who to avoid as well. Who are the people in that ecosystem which actually may have more work if they introduce your product, right? It doesn't actually help them. You want to be staying away from them because they're going to be very negative about the product, okay? So yeah, it helps you to explain the solution to the customer's problem to the correct person for a simpler sale. So I hope that was helpful. That was video 2. In the next video, we're going to talk about building relationships and trust and why this is important, how this can lead to easier sales. So if you liked the video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the next video. And if you want to watch video 1, which is covering the basics of selling, you can click down here. So it's been a pleasure. Hope that was helpful. I'll see you in the next video.